Wham. Liftoff.
Hello, Flyover family. Buckle up, because this is the Flyover Conservatives show.
We know all about the bad guys and the people on the left that have weaponized the justice system against us. But who are the good guys fighting on our team? We've got one of them on the show tonight.
Is the world uniting against the U.S. dollar? Dr. Kirk Elliott is here for an economic update.
There's a lot more positivity and wins out there than you probably realize, and one of them is the world is looking for answers and faith-based content is exploding. People are looking for truth, and where are they looking? They're looking up.
All of this and more on the Flyover Conservatives show! Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
We've had a lot of disruptive stuff happen in the news lately. Basically like news bombs going off, something like a storm, a little bit like a hurricane. But when a hurricane comes through, what do they do next? They start digging through and saying, what actually happened? What was the damage? What's left? And that's kind of where we wanted to land a little bit with President Trump, with his indictment. And one of our policies in life is I try to get advice from people who actually know what's going on a particular area. And you know, I don't know why. Sometimes people get a lot of fitness advice from somebody that's not that fit. You know, they get a lot of,
that is true.
Driving tips from people who aren't that good at driving.
Financial advice from people that are broke.
Or whatever else. And we have a great guest today. He's been a longtime fixture of the Washington, D.C. legal community. He runs a thing called the NLPC Council. His name is Paul Kamenar.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you.
We got a few applause here. In the legal world, I don't know how many standing ovations and applause you get. You probably get a mixed reaction of both.
Yeah, I do, especially like when I'm on college campuses. I get a lot of heckling too from the woke crowd, so I'm used to it.
Well, let's jump in real quick. Tell us a little bit about the National Legal and Policy Center and what you guys are about. One of our mottos, just kind of give you a heads up, and I know we've talked about this before, but we really like people to wake up, speak up, and show up. Mm-hmm. It's not just entertainment or try to enrage people so they'll come back for more clicks. It's people come to this show looking like, okay, what can I do? And they like to be connected with doers, and that's exactly why we reached out to you to come on today's topic. So.
Great. Yeah. So we are a do tank instead of a think tank in that regard.
Yes.
So the National Legal Policy Center is a nonprofit public interest ethics watchdog group. And what we do is go after those in power who are violating ethics laws and other requirements. We've filed many complaints against the likes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for her taking thousands of dollars worth of in-kind gifts when she attended that Met Gala a couple years ago wearing that tax the rich dress.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep. Sure
Oh,
do.
there it is. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah. So right now, the Office of Congressional Ethics is looking at that and may issue her some subpoenas to answer for these charges. We've also had a lot of work going after Black Lives Matter and the way they ripped off their supporters with millions of dollars, 60, 70, 80 millions of dollars, and then it's being used for the personal purposes of the leader of the group, Patrisse Cullors, and we've been on her case such that last year she resigned from the group, saying she couldn't take it anymore, and but we're still putting the spotlight on her and other organizations and groups that we think are getting away with it in this two-tier system of justice. Unfortunately, we see here in Washington, and that sort of brings us to the current spectacle with criminal indictment against Donald Trump.
Well, I like to position you a little bit as like you're a defender. I guess everybody thinks they're on the good team, or whatever. But sometimes as conservatives, you feel like there's all of these levers of power that are held by the left, whether it's the media, Hollywood, messaging, all the celebrities, and definitely when it comes to the legal world, you can look at a Hunter Biden and it's like, man, like advice to the world, if you're ever going to commit a crime or do something really nefarious, identify as a Democrat when you do it, for sure.
True.
It's like probably the best legal advice you could ever get, because you feel like it's lopsided. You feel like, but there's organizations like Judicial Watch, and there's people that behind the scenes, kind of in a reactionary way, are doing it, or pushing back in yourself. And I don't think that gets as much attention because mainstream media doesn't cover your work and things that are happening. But there are good guys fighting for us, and there are things happening. You just may not know that they're out there, and it's kind of, if somebody has a gun and they're shooting at you, the best thing you can do is have a gun and protect yourself, and you're sort of the gun in the hand of goodness.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you mentioned Hunter Biden, and yes, we've been on his case for the last 2 or 3 years, filing complaints with the Justice Department Office of Foreign Agents Registration, since he should have registered as a foreign agent of China for taking millions of dollars from the Chinese energy company, getting a lot of money, spreading it around to his family. He's being investigated as we're speaking by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware for the last 3 or 4 years for tax evasion, for money laundering, and so forth. And we don't hear anything coming out of that. Yet he's selling his so-called artwork for $50,000 to $500,000 to unknown buyers. And by the way, that art gallery, we went after the art gallery for getting a $500,000 COVID loan that was given in record time in a week when it normally takes, 30 to 90 days. And this, it's just, we can go on and on.
Oh,
yeah.
What's going on?
And that's to keep his personal life out of it, which reads like something like a warning from the Old Testament. It's like, like a list of like, they had to add commandments for this guy, like new stuff that you could do wrong. That wasn't even a sin. He invented it.
Exactly.
Nobody even knew about that one.
I don't care who you are, turn your stomach. The stuff that comes out documented, not even hearsay. So people this gets all this attention, and there's this grinding down, almost a demoralization of people that want to raise their kids in a safe place, that want their kids to have as good or better life than they've had. They want to raise their grandchildren.
Yep.
And like, they kind of go to work, they pay their taxes, just what I consider the normal American, and they see these things happen, they get away with it, and it's like, when will there be justice? It's like the earth itself is moaning for justice, and I'm thankful that you're on the watch.
Well, yeah, thank you, and I'm also thankful that the Republicans took over the House, because now we have the various House investigation committees, the House Oversight and Accountability Committee with James Comer, the House Judiciary Committee chaired by Jim Jordan. They've issued requests for documents from Hunter Biden and the banks, and they just recently got 130 some suspicious activities reports from the Treasury Department of transactions that were suspicious of money laundering due to Hunter Biden's millions of dollars of transactions going in and out of bank accounts. So thankfully, we have them in charge now. And coming this spring that we're in and summer, you'll start seeing some of these witnesses come before these committees. And we're going to start to get some answers to this, because otherwise, if the Democrats were still in charge of the House, this would all be buried.
That's right. Man, that is a really good point. You brought it up earlier. I'd like to go back to it. You talked about, President Trump, the indictment, what we're looking at right now. In your opinion, do you think this indictment will stand?
I don't think it will. I don't think, of course, that it should, for many reasons. I mean, here you have this Alvin Bragg, or as I call him, Alvin Braggadocious, who is out there, who ran his campaign vowing to get Trump.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of the Joseph Stalin's former head of his Soviet secret police, where his motto was, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime." Well, that's what's going on here in this Soviet-style system of justice, where they're out to get Trump no matter what the crime. So what is the crime here, folks? They said that the Trump organization listed on their financial reports that the money that Trump repaid to Michael Cohen, his lawyer, was for legal services. And that's a false business entry. Okay, so under New York law, that's nothing burger. It's a misdemeanor. They might as well charge him with some traffic tickets and jaywalking. So in order to jerry-rig this non-crime into a felony, what Bragg is doing is saying, well, it's a felony in New York if you have this false entry to cover up a crime. So what is this crime? It doesn't say in the indictment. The indictment is completely silent on that. But he attached this scurrilous so-called statement of facts saying that Trump had a non-disclosure agreement with Stormy Daniels, which, by the way, is perfectly legal. Non-disclosure agreements are signed every day where there's allegations of wrongdoing in the corporate setting, and in order to settle the charges, real or not, there's non-disclosure agreement. So here you have non-disclosure agreement. Okay, so that's not illegal. So they said, well, that money that Cohen paid for the non-disclosure agreement constitutes an illegal contribution to your federal campaign. And you go, well, there's several things wrong with that. First of all, New York does not have any authority over federal election law. By the way, I used to be an attorney at the Federal Election Commission, and I do some campaign finance law, so I know a little bit about this subject. Secondly, the two agencies that do have jurisdiction over this trumped up, no pun intended, election charge is the Federal Election Commission and the Justice Department, neither of which sought to go after Trump for these so-called campaign violations. And it's probably smart that the Justice Department did not, because they did the same thing in 2011 when they filed criminal charges against then Senator John Edwards from North Carolina, who ran against Obama in the primary. He had a mistress on the side. They had a love child, and he got some $900,000 from a mega Democratic donor for hush money because his wife at the time didn't know about it. She was suffering from terminal breast cancer. So the Justice Department filed criminal charges on this theory that this constituted a campaign contribution. The jury came back not guilty on one of the counts, and they were hung on the other accounts. And the Justice Department threw in the towel and says, look, this is a screwy legal theory. We're not going to retry you. So they closed that book back then. And then now Bragg, this local Manhattan DA, says, well, wait a minute, I'm going to resurrect it. But again, like I said in the beginning, that's not under his jurisdiction. So this indictment should be dismissed on those kind of legal grounds, that there's really no there with respect to the criminal charge. And then there's other legal problems. There's a statute of limitations problem where you have to bring charges within a certain time period. The misdemeanor violations under New York law is 2 years. Well, this so-called false entry took place in 2017. 2 years is up there. The felony that he's trying to concoct, that's a 5-year statute of limitations. Well, let's see, 2017 plus 5 is 2022. We're now in 2023. So they're going to say, well, we got some exceptions to that. So that should be thrown out on those grounds, and also should be thrown out just because, as I said at the beginning, Bragg had it in for Trump regardless of the violation. And under the law, that's called selective prosecution. It's a hard case to make, but it has been done, where a defendant will move to dismiss the charges, even if they're true, on the grounds that, wait a minute, you're just picking me out because you don't like my politics, etc. And that's a political vendetta. And in our system of justice, we're not supposed to follow that Soviet-style kind of justice.
Plus, he's backed by George Soros, right? Which seems to be a problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, George Soros has backed all these liberal local DAs across the country. Alvin Bragg is one of them, and here Alvin Bragg is, of course, following the liberal line here, going after Trump, and at the same time, Alvin Bragg, during his press conference, said, we have to go after Trump because these are serious crimes that cannot, go be untouched. I'm saying, serious crimes? You got criminals in New York
Right.
pushing people off the subway platforms and assaulting people and raping people.
Yep.
And they're out on bail. And what he's doing in about 50% of his cases, he's taking actual felonies and reducing them to misdemeanors.
Mm-hmm.
Here, he's taking a 2-bit misdemeanor and blowing it up into this fake felony. So it really is despicable, and it's a really sad day for American jurisprudence and justice to see this kind of dual system of justice going on.
And people feel it. Now, you guys can go to nlpc.org, and there's the article on Ocasio-Cortez. There's one on Alvin Bragg. There's a lot of information you can learn if you want to be the smartest American at the water cooler when you guys are talking about this at work.
That's
or when you
right.
get together with your family. That is a resource that you can go to, nlpc.org. And
Thank
also, if you want to put your money where your mouth is a little bit, even if it's $10 or $5 or something, you can actually, if you get this bent up energy and you're like, oh my gosh, I just wish I could just throw a brick at my TV sometimes. Well, funnel that energy towards helping people that are actually doing the work that maybe you can't do. The same mindset you'd have if there's a missionary in the Philippines and you're like, man, I would love to go. I love what the work they're doing, but I can't leave my job and my family and go to the Philippines. You can support somebody who is. If you don't want to live in the cesspool known as Washington, D.C. and do the work that Paul's doing, hey, he's willing to be basically a missionary on your behalf and go there and be the attorney that's beating up their attorneys to bring justice about here. Let me throw a question at you because, we held an event. We were with General Michael Flynn and Eric Trump and Clay Clark as a ReAwaken America event that
Right.
we had to go through five venues
they're great.
in Rochester, New York, and their top legal mind of the state of New York, Letitia James, was threatening to file suit for having this event because then they just throw names at you. You're a white supremacist and you're all this, which basically just means I disagree with you. An insult from the left just means that they disagree with you. So we had to change venues from any kind of a civic building to eventually had it in a tent in a field outside of a church, and it ended up being a smashing success. And the good guys just kind of keep moving on, and it was an incredibly successful event. Thousands of people attended. People standing around outside the tent. It was an incredible event. But I'm like, the amount of headwinds you have to push against when you're in a blue state because they'll use their laws, their state. If you're caught spitting on a sidewalk in a blue state, they're going to come after you as a conservative. There's this backlash you see in the media now of like, well, red states, if you're in Texas and Florida and Missouri, we need to start going after, like this. It works for them. We need to start doing the same thing here. I look at that as a very dark, slippery slope to become a country that would just be unbearable, more unbearable than it is now, more divisive than it even is now. Can we get justice in the system that currently exists without retaliating to, hey, then we're gonna go after the next president. When Biden leaves, we're gonna put him in, can we escape that kind of tick for tack justice system and get it the way that our founders intended? Is it possible still to get justice the way our founders intended?
Yeah, good question. I mean, you're talking about fighting fire with fire, which is one way to handle this. But in order to rise above that, it should be that justice from the Justice Department, hence the name Justice Department,
right,
should be the one that has an even-handed system of justice, and that's why these investigations by the House committee are going on to at least show the American people this dual system of justice. They've also issued requests for Alvin Bragg to come to testify before Congress about this whole investigation. And Alvin Bragg came back the other day and saying, "You don't have any jurisdiction over me to look into what I'm doing locally." And then the retort to that is, "Well, you don't have any jurisdiction over federal election laws. We do."
Right.
So we need to, as legislatures, know how you out there are twisting the law around to your benefit. So I think, though, from the other side, our side, I think at least they're going after legitimate issues here with Hunter Biden and so forth, not these made up crimes that the left is doing. So if it's perceived that, well, it's tit for tat or whatever, at least I think on our side, we have legitimate complaints to go on. But the Justice Department has been notorious for weaponizing their enforcement. We know how they go after parents at school board meetings, claiming they're domestic terrorists.
Right.
They went after the father in Pennsylvania for protesting outside the abortion clinic.
Yep.
I mean, that was totally outrageous. I mean, this is a police state, the way they're operating. But you mentioned something about New York and Letitia James. Interestingly enough, before the Supreme Court right now is a petition to review, filed by the National Rifle Association, how they got basically debanked or eliminated by the New York State Attorney General's authorities. And that issue before the court is basically they went after us because of our First Amendment, speaking out about our Second Amendment issues. So that one hopefully should be granted by the Supreme Court. We won't know until later this spring if they decide to take it. But you've got to go through the courts on a lot of these cases. We're in there helping the good fight. And besides coming to our website, like you said earlier, supporting us. Also, if you all have social media out there, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, Getter, whatever, to take what we've got on our website and retweet it or send it around to your followers. So that way we get the message out as well.
And that is a great way of, because, our slogan here is, I think you mentioned it, but it's wake up, speak up, and show up. And that's what we want the Flyover family to do. That's how we're going to win this war, is not being the silent majority, not burying our head in the sand and thinking, I hope this goes away. It's supporting you. It is tweeting things out. It's getting information. It's great conversations at the water cooler. It's helping to wake up people that have no idea that this is going on. But that's our part. You're doing what you can do. Now we have to do what we can do.
We got to be a force multiplier for the work that you're doing already.
That's exactly right.
Good description on that. Yes, indeed.
And so you can go to, here's Twitter at NLPC, but you can go to NLPC.org. This is a great way, again, you can read articles, different things there, but a great way to be able to support Paul and what they're doing there. So go to the donate on the top right there. You can donate. It says they accept all major credit cards. And when they do that, Paul, where is this money going to go to? What does it help with?
Yeah, no, our money goes to putting out the kind of efforts we're doing here. It goes to not only, we have other people on our staff. By the way, another part of our program, you'll see on our website, is going after the woke corporations. We have a corporate integrity project where we go to annual shareholder meetings, going after Disney, going after JP Morgan, and standing up at the meetings, asking that they disclose the kind of woke capitalism that they're doing, how they're doing business with China and so forth. So that takes a lot of research, a lot of work, a lot of staff work, etc. So we use our donations very wisely. We're lean and mean. We don't have a huge staff, but we try to make the best with what we've got.
That's incredible. Thank you for everything that you're doing, Paul, to help to save our country. We really do appreciate it.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. period.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
God actually spoke to me. He spoke about sacredness. He said to me, Kim, what I place in many, many people is sacred. And if anybody touches what is sacred to me, then it is the end for them. So what I've done in the United States of America is sacred. And there are people on every side that are trying to destroy what I deem sacred. And it's not going to happen.
This is the definition of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, and collusion. This is not a theory. This is evidence.
Because I have upheld this country to spread a light to the rest of the world. When you choose to go against the sacred thing that God put into the very heart and the soil of this nation, this was sacred to God.
This ReAwaken tour is literally what it means. It has reawakened the American heart.
You know, one of my favorite stories, in the Bible is the story where there's a great big storm and the Jesus in the boat.
Yep.
And I don't know how scared the disciples were, but they said they were basically scared to death.
Yeah.
They thought they were going to die. And Jesus was sleeping.
That is pretty scared.
And Jesus is taking a nap.
Yep.
We've been on some bad boat things where storm kicked in and you're like,
I thought I was going to die.
we're on a boat one time and we saw the captain hang off the side holding onto a railing. We're on a fishing trip in the
It's
Gulf.
either going to die or be Gilligan.
And it's like, oh, we didn't have a lot of peace in that storm.
No!
It was like going crazy. Jesus was taking a nap. Sometimes you can't predict the storms around, but you can have a peace inside of it. We got a guy here who wrote a book on it called Thriving, not just taking a nap, but thriving in the economic tsunami. And he goes by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott, and he's with us today.
You have my book.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's still like the ink is still like wet. It's brand new. This is like fresh and hot.
I know. That is awesome.
I was hoping we'd get like a free copy from you or something. I had to buy this on Amazon. That's the thing when you deal with economic analysts. Like they're like Dave Ramsey, like little penny pinchers. They're like looking at the spreadsheets. Not giving. There's no free books. The only free cheese is in the mousetrap, baby. You got to buy your own book.
I'll send you some free books, then you can give that.
That's all right. I already got my own book, so it doesn't matter.
We'll give it to some Flyover family. They would love it.
I don't need your handouts.
So I love your little story at the beginning because I went deep sea fishing in the Sea of Cortez once down in Mexico with Joe, and so we were out there, and the farther out we got, the bigger the waves were. Well, this was like a 12-foot like rowboat with like a little 25 horsepower Mercury.
Oh, wow.
And in Mexico, the insurance laws aren't quite the same as they are here. It's like there's no life jackets on this boat.
Oh, no.
It's like a little boat, and the waves are like 10 feet tall, and like a can't see over the top of them. It's like, oh my word, we are going to die. And everything I knew about the Sea of Cortez is when you look down into the depths where it's dark, there's hammerhead sharks down there.
Oh my gosh.
On the side, it's like, okay, those are weird. But anyways, I understand that feeling that the disciples had because it's like, small little dinky boat, little horsepower engine, and these waves are massive and you can't see over the top of the crest of them. But we made it back, right?
Yeah.
Amen.
But it would have been hard.
We were deep sea fishing too. That was our only experience.
I've only been once. Never went back. It's fine. I can just buy my fish at the grocery store.
Exactly.
But you probably weren't able to take a nap in that moment.
No.
Jesus had that kind of peace because he had a great source. Now, when it comes to economics, Biden's not our source.
Nope.
We don't look at these places. It takes sound wisdom. And there is a way, and we've been talking about this for 2 years. This has been coming for a long time. We're having Kevin Freeman on this week. He's been sounding the alarm bell on these same issues since 2012 of, hey, this is coming. And, and it is, but you can have peace inside of
And
that.
thrive.
But you got to know what you're doing as well. Ignorance isn't bliss. Ignorance is destruction. And you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to know what you're doing. And the people that call me every single day, phones ringing off the hook, and it's intensifying, they're just as scared as the disciples, right? Because they're afraid they're going to lose their retirement. They're afraid they're going to lose everything they've worked their whole life to accumulate because of stupid government policies that neither one of us can control, right? But what are some of those policies, and why should they not have fear, right? I mean, that's the goal of these shows, is to, we'll talk about the news. Don't kill the messenger. It's bad. I mean, it's truly, it's not good sounding, but the solution is amazing, right? Which is, if people were ever like not watch this whole episode, it's like, all they talk about is the fear. It's like, no, there's always a solution at the end. There's always a solution. Just gotta watch it till the end.
You have the hack to beat this.
You do.
We do have the hack. So I saw this article over the weekend as I was just with family in Arizona. Had 35 family members there. It was like ultimate chaos, not like market chaos. But it was amazing. It was amazing. I always love spending time with family. But I was reading this article. It was in Zero Hedge, and it talked about a role reversal collapse of the dollar. Right. So what is this role reversal? So you go back in time when the Russia used to be the USSR, right? It had all these different satellite states like Georgia and Ukraine and Lithuania, whatever, right? They were all part of the USSR, and they dismantled, right? And so now you just got Russia and all these other little countries. Well, during that time, it was economic collapse and mayhem for them because they lost all of this land, all the agriculture, all the energy, everything that they had with these satellite nations. It's gone, right? So went in complete disarray. But during that time, they've been building something. They've been building towards something. And we're seeing that now manifest itself out with the BRICS nations, right? The Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then the 20 plus nations that are coming into the BRICS nations. And what are they doing? So the U.S. has been the world's reserve currency for a long time. Go back to the Bretton Woods Act of the 1940s, and then added to that the petrodollar in the 1970s, basically keeping them at bay, keeping Russia down, keeping the rest of the world down, while the U.S. was actually just exploding in power, impact, influence, prosperity, everything, right? So, but now the goal of this article was to say, there's times changed. World reserve currencies never last.
Right.
They don't. And there's a fundamental reason why. And that is, when we have to fund all international settlements of oil and everything else, you have to print more dollars than what you need domestically. So we have to. It's like, it just need to be done. But over time, people forget that was the case. And they start looking, it's like, hey, America, you printed way too much currency. You're flooding the markets with it. You're treating it like monopoly money. And we should say, well, we have to, because we have to fund all these international settlements. It's like, well, no, you don't have to, because we're going to find a new reserve currency, find someone who hasn't squandered their time in the sun and amassed trillions of dollars worth of debt, tens of trillions of dollars worth of debt. This happens all the time. You go back throughout history, the average length of a reserve currency is in the 80 to 100 year range, right? Well, we're 80 plus years into this experiment. We're pushing the edge of the envelope. And sure enough, you need another reserve currency that actually can mimic the military superpower status, the economic superpower status, the political superpower status. You need all of those to be a world reserve currency. Well, China doesn't have it in and of themselves. Neither does Russia. But together with all these countries, they really do. I mean, I hate to say it, but they do.
Well, just that basic core of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, just that initial core, not the 14 that they've grown to now or whatever, just that initial batch, that's 41% of the world's population.
Oh, it's absolutely.
That means 41% of the world that eat, that buy TVs, that do things, that are consumers and are doing things. That means they're trading dollars for things every day. 41% of those exchanges are just now whoop.
Right. They are. And so you and I were talking earlier, and you showed me another article that came out this weekend about President Macron in France, right? One of our, like, I would say, part of G7 nations, part of our friends, our allies in Europe, right? So what are they saying? Macron said Europe should reduce dependence on U.S. dollars after meeting with China's President Xi.
They jumped out at me on that. Once that becomes public, it's kind of like if you ever had like a couple that look like their marriage is great, and you see them at church every weekend, and things are good, and it's like they kind of keep it up, and then once it starts slipping out, like oh, they're having problems, oh, he's staying somewhere else. All of a sudden, it's like boom, it's real fast.
Yep.
And then a bunch of toxicity comes out of like, oh, this has been going on for 4 years, and but like that image can kind of stay good right until it doesn't, and that falls quick, and then it's very public. And when you see that the word leaked out, when you got a guy like Macron, who they've been buddies with us since we helped rebuild them after World War II, and now he's openly sitting with China, he's openly talking in public of like, hey, we need to move away from these guys. That once that image cracks, it's very quick.
It's really quick, and people are viewing everything that's happening right now. Everything's happening at a supernatural clip. It's not. We're just seeing the manifestations of everything that's been going on for decades.
Yeah,
it just now happens to be coming to fruition, right? It's like the bamboo tree or whatever, right? It's like it takes forever for those roots to grow deep, and then all of a sudden it shoots up like I don't know how tall, like 90 feet in a year or something crazy, whatever those numbers are, right? But it's like that it took a long time for those roots to grow deep before you could even see the little sproutlet of a leaf come out of the ground, right? And then it just explodes. Same thing here. This is not an overnight sensation that the BRICS nations are starting to take over. It's been decades of the U.S. printing more money than what they need. It's been decades of Russia working behind the scenes, getting out of U.S. treasuries. That's what they've been doing. And what they've been doing with those proceeds, buying gold, right? They've been buying mountains of gold. So has China, so has Kazakhstan, so has Uzbekistan, so has United Arab Emirates. So are all these nations that are going into the BRICS nations. They've been buying gold like there's no tomorrow. But really, this isn't like something where, oh yeah, on April 6th, all of this started to happen. No, it didn't. I mean, it looks like it did.
Right. Yep.
But it didn't. This has been going on for a while. We just happen to be the generation that's alive while all of this plays out and manifests itself. But a lot of this has been happening since I was just a little kid, right? And now we're actually seeing it play itself out. Well, here's what we need to do about that. It's like, why is the BRICS nation, once you understand the why, then you can be in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
So why are the BRICS nations backing their currency with gold? Because they know that politically they have to set themselves apart. If you're going to kick the US dollar, out of world reserve currency status, well, then you better have something that looks more attractive. What would be more attractive? Having the same kind of reserve currency system, but backing it with gold, right? Because 90% of the central bank digital currencies around the globe are going to be there within the next probably 24 months. These central banks are going to central bank digital currency. What's going to make the BRICS ones better? Well, I wouldn't say better is a good choice of words. What's going to make them attract more people into their system where they can, with command control, fascist type policies, cut them off from buying or selling whenever they want, dangle that gold carrot out there saying, look at what we're doing. We are fighting and pushing and gaining momentum to be the world's reserve currency, because that's not just some small change. That's a change of the global financial system as we know it from the West to the East. And there's this big, giant sucking sound of a vacuum of money leaving London and New York, in our financial system, and going east to Shanghai and being dominated by the BRICS nations. This is the world that we live in right now. And when that happens, we will have more inflation here because there's going to be less demand for our dollar.
Yep.
But yet our expenses aren't going down as a country. We have to continue to print to fund everything. But policymakers right now are slow to understand this fact. They don't cut expenses. They keep expenses the same. They just try to create more money out of thin air. This is the problem that we're in, because when a nation goes into dependency status where the citizens are dependent on the government for money, you can't take that away without a revolt and without upheaval. Mm-hmm. Well, they don't want that on their watch. No politician ever wants that on their watch. So therefore, they keep kicking the can down the road. Now, the rise of the BRICS nations has got policymakers just really in a pickle. It's like, man, this isn't happening at a good time, right? When inflation has run its course, now we have to raise rates to slow down that inflation. All at the same time, demand for the dollar is going away. Of course it is. The BRICS nations are smart. They're playing economic warfare at its finest, and they know that they can kick us while we're down, strip away more demand, so we have to print more money just to break even every month. This is what's happening in its most elemental terms.
How long can they kick the can? I mean, at what point can they stop kicking the can? And what happens when they're like, okay, I can't kick the can any longer?
Well, things change seemingly overnight.
Yeah,
right. It's like,
it'll be like, wow, that happened in a day.
It just sort of happened. It's like, but when that happens, when there is not enough foreign demand for our currency, we actually start to spiral into a hyperinflationary spiral. Just like Venezuela did, just like Argentina did, just like Cyprus did, just like Greece did, just like Zimbabwe did. I mean, all of these happened because it's just math, right? It's fundamental. It's you can't continue to print money and expect the same things to happen when your currency is devaluing.
Yeah.
So
it's ultimately just a confidence game. You know, it's almost like a tough guy in a prison or something. Nobody messes with him because he has this reputation. But if somebody tripped him and he fell, or they put a kick me sign on the back or something and he couldn't defend it, like all of a sudden that guy's going to get munched up. It's that confidence game of like, nobody's going to mess with this guy because he looks like the toughest one. And that's been us. They saw our COVID response, which is to print trillions, and they're all holding these dollars that are worth less every time we do it. It shocked me this weekend to see Mark Meadows, who kind of campaigned on no more just blank checks to Ukraine. That's over. But he held a press conference over the weekend, or maybe it was Friday, saying, hey, we're going to defend Taiwan, and we're going to do whatever it takes to supply them with the weapons necessary to protect themselves from China. Now,
in a
very Ukraine type way. He even said, in a Ukraine-like model, we're going to defend Taiwan. Okay, so basically he's just saying, let's go ahead and print $100 billion and send it in weapons to Taiwan. Well, where does that $100 billion come from? It's just printing more money. So every indicator we're giving the world is it's just going to get worse, because it's like a family that's just like, hey, any problem we got, I'll put it on a credit card. You know, we're not going to reduce spending. We're not going to get a second job. We're not going to do anything. And it just gets worse, which only matters when there's $38 trillion being held outside the United States in US dollars.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to hold those dollars anymore.
No, they don't. But this is where there's amazing hope in this mess.
All right, bring it on.
So this morning, my wife Jo shared with me this verse from Nehemiah. In Nehemiah 13:2, here's the quote. It says, "Because they did not meet the Israelites with bread and water, but hired Balaam against them to curse them. Yet our God turned the curse into a blessing."
Yes.
Right? We're not talking about Israel here. We're not talking about America here. We're talking about believers, right? We're saying, okay, these things people are looking at as a curse to their finances, a curse to their retirement, the fact that the BRICS nations are rising up. It's like there's solutions, and there's things here where God will turn a curse into a blessing. Yeah. Right. And this is where, when we allocate wisely into these markets and understand the trends that we're seeing, what the enemy, what the world views as a curse against us and against believers, God will turn that into a blessing. He always does, because he's an amazing God, right? So take these economic trends, this lack of demand for US dollars, which, you know what, it's not going to just go away. It will intensify, but yet that means the blessing will intensify as well.
Amen.
And that's what we need to focus on. David, you started. Don't focus on the storm, you know, in the Sea of Galilee. Focus on the solution. Never focus on the storm, because you'll be stricken with fear. You'll be, you know, mental anguish, right? It's going to cause all kinds of bad things to happen in your brain and your heart, right? So focus on the miracle of the solution. And that's what we do. And that's what we bring to people, because over this time when things are eroding, silver's booming, right? It's like it's up 17% in the last couple of weeks. It's up 38% in the last 6 months. It's up since Biden took office. It's like up 75%. Gold's up 35%, all while other markets are declining. It's like, and don't come back and yell at me when the viewers of these shows, when I say these numbers, because they'll say, oh, but I got into silver when it was 26 and it's now at 25. It's like, yeah, you're going to have 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? But look at the trend. The trend is up 17% during this time. The trend is up 38% over the last 6 months. The trend is up 75% over the last 3 years. But in that time, you're going to have higher points and lower points, but it's moving up, right? And so as time moves on, we're going to get to a point where even the president of HSBC, one of the 10 largest banks in the world, thinks that silver is going to hit $100 an ounce over the next 12 months because of supply chain disruptions, low inventory, high demand. So we just take advantage of these trends. Economists that are big, that are in charge of some of the largest banks in the world, are now looking at this as a viable solution and something that's going to grow. We just get to take advantage of that, and that's where our hope in this darkening world is.
Man, and that's huge. You know, you might be watching this and thinking, "Oh man, maybe it's too late. It's at 24." You know, I saw the show when it was at 18 and I didn't do anything. It's not too late, because again, you got to look at the trajectory. Where is it going? And you know, every month we have just been diligently, all right, no matter where it is at that time. If it's at $18, $26, it doesn't matter.
We bought it at all of those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And just continuing to invest and know that we are doing the right thing. And Dr. Kirk, we are so thankful for your team and everything that you guys are doing, all the time that you're putting in. You've hired more people to be able to help as patriots are calling in, as people are calling in saying, I need help. When you go to flyovergold.com, it's a landing page. It's a place that you can learn more information, but also you can put in your information, and then someone from Dr. Kirk's team will set up a free consultation. It doesn't cost you any money, so there's no reason not to do it. So put in your information. Someone from Dr. Kirk's team will schedule time to set up that free consultation to get your questions answered, find out how they can help you, or you can also call 720-605-3900. Dr. Kirk, thank you so much for your time and everything that you're doing to help to save us during this time. We really appreciate it. Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
You know, times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how. In 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for your free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
Okay, I have some really exciting news. I felt like tonight's show was so encouraging.
There's a lot of wins.
A lot of wins. Talking to Paul talking to Doctor. I mean, honestly, I was like so encouraged.
That's what's important to be careful of all the stuff that's coming in, because if you're just listening to mainstream media, you think the sky's falling. And it might be falling in chunks, but there's winds at the same time.
So I have something we wanted to share with you guys tonight about some big wins when it comes to faith. This was really exciting. We heard some stats over the weekend. I thought this was really cool. So, by the way, I hope you all had an incredible resurrection weekend. Yeah. Again, what an exciting time to be alive. You know, in the spring, new things are blooming. There's so much encouraging things coming out. And so here's what's going on when it comes to the faith world. Films, podcasts, apps, television series, all of these, they're actually moving into the mainstream and climbing the charts. And so here's some things I wanted to point out.
Faith-based content, which what do we do in the show?
Oh, we talk about culture through the lens of conservative
Current
Christian
events
values.
and culture through the lens of conservative Christian values, and it's exploding.
It is. Woo! All right, let's talk about, first of all, The Chosen. Here's some things I wanted to highlight about it. It is one of the highest grossing crowd-funded entertainment projects of all time. All right, it's $10 million has actually been donated to this film. 100 million worldwide views have been for the seasons 1 and 2, but check this out. A total views of over 440 million.
Wow.
440 million. So 100 million worldwide have seen series 1 and 2, but 440 million. All right, let's talk about Jesus Revolution. We actually had the opportunity to interview the producer,
Daryl Lefevre.
And
we'll put the link down below to that interview. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And so it was a huge success. We actually talked to him before the film came out. It was a box office success, grossing more than $50 million.
It's a profit, which is more than Disney and a lot of the even Marvel shows can show. They're losing money through these big budget movies that nobody wants to really go see.
That's exactly right. Let's move on to apps. Okay, this is really interesting. There is an app, a Catholic meditation and prayer app called Hollow that's actually endorsed by Jonathan Rumick, which is the Jesus from Chosen, as well as
I'm seeing a common thread here because he's in The Chosen.
Yeah.
He was in Jesus Revolution, and he's a part of this app. So whatever that brother touches goes straight to the roof.
That's right. As well as Jim Caviezel. He's actually the one that played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ.
So you have some kind of connection to Jesus.
No kidding.
And it's going good.
They're promoting this. And so it's actually number 3 on the Apple Store overall.
Man.
It's connected millions of people in prayer, scripture, and meditation, and facilitated more than 175 million prayers worldwide.
Now, I want to make sure I get that number right. That's number 3 among all apps as a whole.
Apple Store overall.
Downloads. I mean, and what's else is going to change things right now? When you look at the despair and the brokenness and the hurt,
I know,
and the amount of mental illness and things in this country, it's prayer. Prayer is the effective change that'll make a difference. And you got an app connected to prayer, and it's the number 3 on
number 3
on the Apple Store. That's a hopeful sign. That's a good indicator on the dashboard.
Oh, and also on Ash Wednesday,
the world is waking up.
It made history on Ash Wednesday when it went to landing at number 3. All right, here's another one.
Little Mike's fired up.
Yep. Let's talk about podcasts. Okay, have you all heard of priest Mike Schmitz? I'm sure you've probably seen his face before.
Producer Colton loves this guy.
Yeah. The Bible in a Year podcast. So it launched in January of 2021. You guys are not going to believe this. Within 48 hours, it actually skyrocketed to number 1 spot on Apple Podcast. Within 48 hours, the number 1 spot. He's had 500 million views since January of 2021 and has consistently ranked number 1 in Apple Podcast subgroups. I mean, is this exciting? This is absolutely amazing.
People praying, and then again, we talk a lot about Andy Stanley and all these different authors writing books about God, but we need a lot less of that and more people actually in God's Word.
Yes.
And so praying to God, reading God's Word, getting God's Word in you. It's like cut out all the middlemen, and the things are actually effective in this world.
I mean, absolutely amazing.
Love it.
And then final thing I wanted to bring up, we actually had the interview with Greg Locke. And then we had Alexander on the show as well.
Alexander Pagani, that was hot.
Oh, that was such a great show. We'll put that in the link too.
And he's coming back on for a full interview where he just you're like, I want more of that.
Yeah.
I want more of that. How does that work?
Okay, well, this was such a huge hit. It was supposed to be 1 night in the theater, and now it's coming out with 2 more nights, tonight, and then as well as the 11th. But check this out. It was number 1 on Christian charts on day 1. It was number 8 across all genres. And it was number 4 at the box office nationwide in just one night. I mean, people are hungry for what God is saying. And I know you all are hungry as well. If you have not seen Come Out in Jesus' Name, make sure you go to the theaters. You can go to their website as well. But we bless you. We are so thankful that you're part of the Flyover family. We bless you to realize the future is brighter than the past. And we bless you to wake up, speak up, and show up.
Lots of winning going on. We'll see you back here tomorrow night, guys. Peace out.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.